ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 501.
Woo!
As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by viable human Chris Saturn.
Justin.
Saturn, we made 500 of these.
Yeah.
And now we can just phone it in.
Yeah. Well, we
for the rest
like
of
we
them.
weren't before.
Shush up. They don't know that.
Sorry.
Be quiet.
Yeah.
No, we were very serious professionals, and now
Yes.
we're over. We've created our body of work.
Yeah.
And now we can just be the later Rush albums, where it's still, it's still pretty good, but it's not as good, as the earlier stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where we are now. Late era Rush albums.
I don't remember some guy I used to work with. I don't remember who it was, but at one point they told me that they always get Rush confused with Beck, and I was like, "How?"
Well, they're both single words. And
Yeah,
they're
I
dumb.
guess.
So, do they also get them mixed up with Cher?
I guess.
You think? Beck, Cher, Rush. Who else?
Basically the same. Tool, all the same.
Tool, Journey, Boston.
Journey is more than four letters.
No, I just meant like it's just one word.
Oh, single word name. Yeah, Prince.
Yeah, single word names. Prince, yeah. Except for the later stuff when he was artist formerly known as Prince.
Yeah, then it's different.
Confused.
That's a different thing.
It's all the same. Usher, all the fucking... For
Same.
housekeeping, we have the guy zone at the end of the episode. We're not supposed to call it that. We have the after party with our producer guy.
I really wanted you to say it how it's written, where it's a question mark at the end, like Guy Zone.
Guy zone. I'll put in the end of the show notes here. Guy is here, and then I won't
Guy Zone
forget that
is
he's
like
here.
R Zone.
Is it?
Yeah.
It was the R zone, but only for boys.
Yeah.
I was talking on Lemmy the other day to someone about something, and I was like, yeah, like back in the 90s when all toys had to be a boy version and a girl version,
Right.
and there could never be a version that was for
Non-gendered.
any gender.
Yeah.
It was always like, no, this is the boy version of the girl version, and every toy had one. So like, for every Polly Pocket, there was a Mad Max, and I felt like an insane person explaining this to this inevitable like 20-year-old. And I was like, no, that's how it used to be.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Which toy aisles in stores are still kind of gender specific, but there's a little more fuzz between them. Like there's some gray aisles in the middle that you're like, yeah, so you can kind of swing either way.
Lego used to always be in the boy area. Is it non-gendered now?
It is now for stores that do separate that way. It's now kind of in the middle. You got the middle section that's kind of stuff like Lego and things like that. That kind of hits both sections.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what we're talking about this.
Oh,
Anyway, guys gonna be here at the end of the show. That's our
Yay.
point. So stay tuned after the ending theme to hear our producer guy show up. He was gonna be on like episode 499 or 500, but he was sick, so he ended up not doing that. But you know that because you listened last episode, didn't you? Because you're just a good little listener, aren't you? I can't get too weird yet. This is our first show of the night.
Yeah.
My week.
Yes, sir.
I spent many, many, many hours fighting with Linux.
Mhm,
My old friend has betrayed me. Linux hates me now.
When I was setting up my current laptop with Linux, I learned that I had to use minimum kernel 6.10 if I wanted everything to work.
Yeah.
And this is on a 11th gen processor. So if you want to use an 11th gen processor, you have to use 6.10 if you want everything to work.
My computer is I was going to look it up. I got it right here. So I bought this laptop right about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, the Framework 16 had just launched, and I was really, really wanting that, but the reviews were still super early, and there was some early bumps in the road, and I was just too nervous spending that much money on something that was as yet unproven. Mm-hmm. So I ended up with this one. It's a 13th gen Intel processor.
So you probably need the 6.13 kernel.
With a RTX 4080. It's an NVIDIA card, which is another
problem in Linux.
And multiple basic hardware functions do not work. My main problem was I have 3 monitors, so I have my laptop on a stand, which is its own monitor, and then I have 2 monitors connected, and it flat out will not do 3 monitors. And I went back and forth in Discord with some Linux support people, and they finally just were like, you need to file a bug report with NVIDIA. It was that bad. It was, you need to talk to the manufacturer level bad. And I was like, oh, so I'm fucked. Like, this isn't going to work.
Score.
I had bad frame timings in games. My sound doesn't work unless I run this one specific handwritten system service script that I have to manually add in to every one of these installations that I do. And there were a couple of just weird issues, like non-functional. I went through Manjaro. I went through Mint. I went through Pop! OS. Bozite wouldn't even install. Just straight up fatal error during installation. Each of these distros, I used every kernel they had available that was past like 6.5. This laptop will not fucking accept Linux. It just flat out will not.
I've been hearing some real bad things about Manjaro lately.
Really?
Apparently they have their own separate repositories for certain applications, but the thing is, because Arch is rolling, and it will pull DLLs and libraries, or not DLLs, libraries from the main Arch server. If those libraries get updated and you're pulling the older version from the Manjaro server, it can break your entire OS.
That's not good. Well, my OS broke itself already.
Right, yeah.
So I've just decided this laptop is just a Windows 11 laptop. And a lot of this stemmed from I'm trying to... I've
decorporatize yourself.
Decorporatize myself. My Facebook is scheduled for deletion. I'm getting off of like Google Photos. We deleted the show's Instagram and Twitter. I don't use any of those things anyway.
Right.
But it's just my data floating out there that doesn't get used, and who knows how it's getting used by someone else.
Right.
And I've been on federated social media, so I've been doing Mastodon and Lemmy and stuff, and I was running PCAP on my phone for a couple days to see what all apps I have that are calling home and how can I de-bloat a little bit and just sort of separate myself a little bit from all the corporations.
Are you using the de-bloated version of Windows 11?
No, I'm not. I'm on the regular home edition, but I've got all the telemetry and stuff all turned off.
Yeah, somebody has made a de-bloated version that gets rid of a lot of the pre-installed stuff like Copilot and Edge and stuff like that.
I've not even had Copilot offered to me on my laptop yet.
Really?
So I don't know why, but I haven't.
That's weird because I reinstalled Windows 11 on my laptop last night and it instantly grabbed Copilot.
They've not even tried to give it to me yet. I don't know why. I'm waiting on it because I've already got the article bookmarked on how to remove it, but. So yeah, and I was like, well, I'll go back to Linux. I mained Linux on my computers for years, but I've always been like a budget king. I buy the best bang for my buck 3-year-old hardware, and this was the first computer I ever bought that was like, I'm going to get the newest shit that I can.
Yeah, that's a problem with Linux.
I never do that, and it didn't even occur to me that I was like, oh yeah, you can't fucking do that, Linux. You need that 2-year lag so that all your shit works without hassle.
I had tried to update my BIOS last night because Lenovo pushed a firmware update, and Linux informed me about it because Lenovo does release all their firmware in such a way that you can install it through Linux through this FWUPD thing. Yeah. And so the GNOME Software Manager pops up and is like, hey, you got a firmware update. I'm like, cool, install it. And it's like, no. It's because I've enabled Secure Boot on Linux, and the firmware updater also needs a signed Secure Boot key. So I'm like, all right, so how do I get my signed Secure Boot key? Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, figure it out. And so I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to extract my Secure Boot key, but it also wants a certificate. And I'm like, well, where do I get the certificate? And it's like, I don't know, figure it out. And I couldn't figure it out. And so finally I was like, this is going to take less time for me to just install Windows 11 and then update my firmware and then go back to Linux. And so I did, and the second that Windows 11 installed, it instantly installed Copilot. So I don't know how you managed to avoid it.
I've been dodging it so far. But,
it popped up right between my start button and my search bar. It was just like boom, Copilot.
I do not have it yet. Maybe I'm a couple updates behind. I don't know, but
unfortunately, the refresh, whatever the super invasive thing where they record your screen is not compatible with my laptop, so I don't have to worry about that. But
I've just decided that future computers I get are going to be from Linux forward companies. It's going to be System 76,
Tuxedo.
Framework, Tuxedo, like any of these companies are like, no, we make computers for Linux by people that use Linux, because I'm just so fucking sick of it. I'm so fucking sick of it.
Yeah. I'm conflicted because on the one end, I want to run Linux on everything, but on the other end, I always want to have bleeding edge tech, and so
it's tough. If that's where you are, it's tough. Granted, I have bleeding edge tech now, and as much as granted, this is a nice laptop. It's a good laptop. But Linux doesn't work on it, and that's a problem for me. I also had to have it repaired from the manufacturer twice.
Yeah.
So that doesn't bode well either.
No, that does not.
But outside of computing news, this is kind of a weird thing to throw out there, but I get asked all the time about these two devices. I think because I've personally recommended them a lot, and they show up a lot in the channels that we, are tangentially related to.
Sure.
I've been talking a lot about the Miu Mini Plus for a long time, and I had recently picked up an RG35XX SP, which is still a terrible fucking name. And I think the SP might actually kind of be overtaking the Miu Mini as like my handheld du jour that for sure gets tossed in my pocket or bag when I leave the house.
Okay.
I think it might be the one, and it is.
When you said for sure gets tossed, I thought you were about to say in the trash.
In the trash. And I think it's because of RTC straight up. I don't play a lot of RTC games, real-time clock games.
Yeah.
But
what is there beyond the Pokemans?
Pokemans?
Oh, okay.
All the Pokemon's ROM hacks? But
see.
like, it's something about having my Mii U and knowing that I shouldn't play my RTC games, or if I do, it's going to be an extra hassle. It has just kind of funneled me into the SP.
So if you're not, if you're somebody who is not at all interested in Pokemon, do you still recommend the Mii U instead?
I don't know. I'm going back and forth on them. I'm like, this is really just a follow up because when the SP came out, I was like, I don't know if it's going to beat my Mii U Mini Plus, and I'm noticing because I have them both on my next to my bed. So when I go to leave the house, I grab one of them.
Yeah,
and it's been the SP the last couple weeks. So
I have never grabbed a handheld to leave my house with. That's just not a consideration I've had.
They always go with me. Yeah, if I'm leaving the house, I'm going to be in the car for an hour at least. So
only if I know I'm going to like a place where I'm going to have a ton of downtime do I ever even consider bringing electronics with me.
But usually, what happens, I keep a bag in my car with some essentials, and usually one of them just lives in that bag. So in the bag is like, medications for me and my kid, and a little first aid kit, and a roll of toilet paper, and I got a jug of water in the back. I live in the middle of nowhere, for people that don't know. I live very far from civilization. Also, I finally got my 8BitDo Xbox-themed clear translucent green plastic keyboard and mouse combo set.
Gross, yeah.
And they're so butt ugly and so fun.
Yeah, I saw Andrew's the other night at his place.
Yeah. This is the Retro 87 keyboard. This is the Xbox, officially licensed version of it. The Xbox button does open the game bar menu on Windows, which is cool. Yeah. It's way heavier than my other, because I have the Famicom Retro 87. This one's noticeably heavier, and it uses different switches. It uses Kale Jellyfish X switches, which have a little different feel. But it's it's still a very nice keyboard, like the other Retro 87s are. And the mouse is okay. It's as okay as it looks like it is, but it matches, and that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
In a mouse is that it aesthetically matches. Saturn, what have you been doing?
So I forgot to put it in the notes, but I figure I'll talk about it since we were already just talking about computery shit.
Yeah.
So last night while I was playing with Windows 11, I figured I would test out my external GPU, my Thunderbolt GPU, on my laptop via Windows 11, just to see how it goes.
Sure.
And I am frustrated now.
Oh, no.
Because my laptop is running just a basic i5 with just Intel graphics. It's a real basic laptop. My desktop here that I'm recording on is a 11th Gen i7 with a RTX 3070, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for its time, it's a pretty good machine, right?
Yeah.
My little 11th Gen i5 laptop with the external GPU was running games significantly better than my desktop. Significantly better than my desktop.
Okay.
Like rock solid 60 frames per second at 1440p on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
What's the hang up?
I don't know. And my guess is it's on my desktop. It's an older Windows installation, and I got a bunch of other shit running all the time. I got Discord and everything.
Yeah.
Whereas on that laptop, it was a fresh, clean Windows 11 installation with literally nothing else running.
Yeah.
Also, maybe it's the external GPU, I had a RTX 2080, whereas on my desktop I have a RTX 3070. But all the reviews I'm reading say that the 3070 should be more powerful than the 2080. So I don't know, and I'm frustrated by it.
I think it also depends. Well, I was going to say it depends on the title, but Rebirth is pretty new. It's
it's like a brand new game. Like I tried literally game for game between the two.
That's weird.
And like Silent Hill 2 and Resident Evil 7 Rebirth were the two games I tried, and both of them were performing better on my laptop, which should be shittier hardware than my desktop, and it's frustrating. Plus, it's going through Thunderbolt, which means that there's extra latency there.
Right.
It's just frustrating. It's very frustrating. But that's just something I wanted to try. Also, once I did put my Linux drive back into my laptop, because that's going to be my daily driver, I thought I'd try my my eGPU again on the exact same games. Couldn't get either one of them to load on the 2080, and so I went back to my Radeon RX 6600 on the eGPU and plugged that in, and they didn't run quite as well, but they ran.
Sure.
But my problem is whenever I have the Radeon plugged in to my external GPU, none of the GNOME applications like console or settings or text editor will load. They all just show garbage graphics. And no one can tell me why or how.
Thanks, computers.
Yep. So, it's good times. It's fun. It's exciting.
It's funny. We talk a lot about like console versus PC gaming in the Discord. It comes up pretty frequently, and like I have these moments where like PC gaming is so great. Like I didn't mention it, but I was playing the Seventh Heaven mod launcher for Final Fantasy VII, and like the amount of
care for that
upgrades I can do to that shit and make it so nice and so modern. If it almost like with enough mods, it feels like the remake that I wish we had gotten.
Yeah, I don't like the way it looks on there.
You can keep the chibi stuff, Yeah. You just toggle it, and you can have HD chibi people. Yeah. If you want to have the Lego guys back. But it's like the freedom to really kind of run your games the way you want. And then we sit here and bitch about computing and how much it sucks for 30 minutes at a time.
And this is why when you or other people say that the Switch 2 has no place in a world with the Steam Deck, I have to argue that the Switch 2 does have a place for people who just want to put in a game and play it.
I never said, this is hyperbolic, I never said that it has no place in a world
True.
with
I
the
was
Steam
exaggerating
Deck.
a little bit there.
I do think the Steam Deck has to have a non-zero effect on the Switch market.
Possibly, yeah.
Point one is non-zero.
Yeah. I do think the Switch 2 probably won't hit the same sales the Switch 1 did, just because the world's different, the market's different.
Speculation, but yeah, I don't see how it does.
But
I think
I still think it'll
really
do
fucking
well.
Good. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, other than that, I've been still chipping away at the pixel remasters on my Xbox. I finally finished Final Fantasy V and immediately went to Final Fantasy 1. And Final Fantasy V is such a slog, and Final Fantasy 1 is so fast that it felt like whiplash. Because it took me 40, 50 hours to finish Final Fantasy V, and then I finished Final Fantasy 1 in one day. It took like 7-ish hours.
It's a swift one.
Yeah. It's so nice to go from this, like, because I'm also trying to hit all the achievements as I go. So in Final Fantasy V, I have to get all the blue magic. I have to fill out the bestiary and not miss anything. And so much of Final Fantasy V is single visit things, and then you miss it. And so I'm having to get all the chests while I'm there and hit all the bestiary entries while I'm there. And so I'm having to do checklists and fill out spreadsheets and shit. And then I get to Final Fantasy 1 and literally nothing is missable. So it's just like, I don't know, do it when you want to do it. And it's just such a nice, relaxing, breezy experience.
Every time I play FF1, most of my time is me just forgetting where shit is or what I need to do next.
Unfortunately, I have that game memorized, so I'm just rushing through it.
Yeah. Let's do some news. First up, Sony will no longer require a PSN account on their PC games, meaning that I might buy some now.
At least on the new ones, they haven't said anything about the existing entries, and maybe they've already patched them by the time we're recording.
I had purchased at launch Helldivers 2 and returned it because it not only required a PSN login, but it was borked and didn't work. And I was like, I have this game downloaded and installed, and I cannot play it because I can't sign into a fucking PSN. And so I got my money back on Steam for that one. So this is exciting news. Less barriers to playing the games that we own.
Yeah, it's supposedly own.
Sony has also issued a DMCA takedown request to a user who patched Bloodborne to run at 60 FPS because also fuck you for running the games you own.
Right?
You bastards.
Yeah.
Why, Sony? They fixed your shit and you're going to show up and... Why?
My guess on this is tinfoil hat territory, but my guess is that they are about to release a patch for PS5 Pro to allow Bloodborne to run at 60 frames per second, and they don't want the competition.
I could see that. That's
my theory.
Konami reports record high quarterly profits now that they're selling video games again. That's weird.
How that's weird.
The video game company sells video games and makes money? This is insane. Someone get Capcom on the phone. Let them know that it can happen. It can still
Capcom
happen.
has been releasing plenty of games and hitting record high profits. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Are Mega Mans?
Well, true. None of them are Mega Mans, but they're selling plenty of the Resident Evil and the Monster
Hunters. Yeah, those are doing good. Those are doing good. New custom firmware for the SD2 PSX and MemCard Pro 2 allow both devices to work as a memory card, as FreeMcBoot, and as an ISO launcher, all from the same device. This is huge.
Yes.
For this particular hardware. This is great.
Yeah, so for PS2, suddenly you have a single memory card that acts as your hardware mod, your software mod, and a memory card all in one.
Yeah, this is great.
And it'll do custom memory cards for each game as you play them. So you have basically as much storage as you can fit on an SD card, which is very exciting.
All very good news. I still have my FreeMcBoot card from like years ago or whatever.
Yeah, I made one.
I put FreeMcBoot on a sticky note and stuck to that card because you had to have both. You had to have your regular memory card because FreeMcBoot was only FreeMcBoot. Mm-hmm. And I'm dreading the day that I dig that all out again and the sticky note has fallen off and I don't know which of my bajillion memory cards was the correct one.
You just plug them in until you find it.
I'm gonna have to. Someone has gotten past the Donkey Kong kill screen. Saturn,
take that, Billy Mitchell.
Coming up over here. Anyone that has not seen King of Kong, man,
you have to. Oh man,
you got to watch it.
That's required viewing,
just so that this news is funnier. It's fucking. Did we do an episode on King of Kong, or did we all just watch it and enjoy it?
I think we've all just watched it over the years. I don't remember us doing an episode.
We really got to do an episode on it now that the Billy Mitchell saga has continued since then.
God, it's
it has gotten sad though.
Yeah,
a little sad. A supermarket in Costa Rica named Super Mario has won a lawsuit from Nintendo over copyright ownership. It's been called Super Mario since like the 70s or something. It's been decades.
So I'm trying to figure this out because the news articles I read said that the guy's been running this supermarket since the 60s or something.
Yeah.
But then also they say that the supermarket was established in 2013. And I'm trying to figure out what they mean by this.
Or something, or
I don't know. I don't know if like he renamed it in 2013 or if because the guy's name is Mario that runs it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel conflicted by the news articles that I've read on this. Maybe I just need to read a better news source or something. Are you
implying that gaming news articles are just headline mills that don't actually research anything, Saturn?
How dare you, Justin?
Mega Man 11 is officially the best-selling game in the series, with sales over 2 million units. 2 million feels really low.
Yeah,
for Mega Man,
especially compared to Resident Evil, where they have multiple games that have sold 10 million now.
Yeah, maybe there's a reason they're not releasing more Mega Man.
That would be wild, Justin.
It's possible. Possible. 2 million feels so stupidly low. Like that's insanely low.
Well, you have to remember most of the games in the series launched on consoles where 1 million was massive.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's true. Atari announces Breakout Beyond for modern consoles and the Atari VCS for some reason. They're still making that worth people's while, I guess. So.
Yeah, I as much as I want to mock it, I have to commend them for not immediately dropping support for the 8 people who bought the VCS.
That's true.
Like these people put a lot of money into this garbage console, and Atari very easily could have just turned around and been like, "Nah, we're going to support real consoles now."
That's true. That's fair. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Onimusha 2 Remaster is coming to the same platforms that got the Onimusha 1 Remaster a few years ago. Shocking nobody.
I mean, I'm a little shocked. I didn't think they were going to do another one because that first one didn't really seem to make any impact.
I think they're just ramping up for that new one that's coming out.
I
they
think
really want
that's
everyone
the reason,
all hands on deck for like, let's check out this new Onimusha.
Yeah.
Which seems exciting.
All right.
LRG announces the LRG Vault, a new store that rotates surplus and out-of-stock items. You mean they're not actually sold out of these things, Saturn?
Yeah, they were doing this thing every year at New Year's where they would open up
clear
their
out the
vault
warehouse,
and let you buy the Draggles because they intentionally keep some overstock for
right. All
returns
companies
and
do
whatnot.
this for damaged goods or whatever. Yeah,
and if it had been a sufficient period of time, they would open them up and let you buy them. And I noticed this year at New Year's they didn't do that, and I was a little upset. And it looks like they're just trying to turn it into a new business.
Thanks, LRG. Good job.
Does this not
imply that they're going to have a business strategy where they withhold even more stock?
Possibly,
to
yes.
then keep their store stocked.
Yeah.
I disagree with so much of what they do. Valve will now warn customers before purchase if early access games haven't received updates for a long period of time, which is good because I think something around 98% of games on Steam are in early access, or at least all the ones I fucking look at. So that's exciting to see.
Yeah. On the other hand, some developers of early access games have come out and been like, look, we give our updates to the people who backed us on Kickstarter or backed us on Patreon or whatever, and it doesn't always trickle to Steam regularly, and we're worried that this is going to make it look like we've abandoned our games when really we're just focusing on the people who are giving us money.
True.
But also the people on Steam are giving you money, so,
Yeah, if you're going to be on a marketplace, then maintain it on that marketplace.
Yeah.
I know it's more work, but sometimes it's work.
Yeah.
Sony has delisted a ton of shovelware and spam titles from the PSN store. Headline from IGN the day before this happened, quote, I could make fart fart booby fart the game and maybe it would eventually get taken down. Devs reveal why the consoles are drowning in e-slop. Yeah.
So I give Sony credit for taking some action on this.
Sure.
Which they're way overdue for it. This should have happened 3-4 years ago. But
yes.
At least they're making some effort. Nintendo still no effort.
Yeah.
But I do hope to someday see Fart Fart Booby Fart the game.
Yeah, I want it. I guarantee you it's already on Steam. Someone has already fucking made this like asset flip Fart Fart Booby Fart the game. And finally, MGS Delta releasing on August 28th. The PS5 version will include original Ape Escape crossover. Xbox
the original Ape Escape crossover from the original game,
Xbox and PC versions will include a new Bomberman crossover, which is much more exciting.
Yeah, I'm much more excited. I was looking at some forum. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was an Xbox specific forum because some dude said, hey, I'm a PS5 owner and now I'm really jealous because I want the Bomberman crossover.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. Bomberman is a better crossover there.
Yeah. Which brings us...
I imagine, like, you know how, like, Snake will have to, like, crawl over C5 to not blow it up? I'm just imagining Snake crawling over Bomberman's bombs as if that'll somehow make him safe.
MGS Delta might be, I know it's going to be like $80 at launch, I'm sure.
Probably,
but I think it might be one that I pay full price for. I think I could see myself, although I'm waiting for the monetization of it.
Right. Well,
I want to see what this model looks like.
Silent Hill 2 has so far had no monetization after release.
True. Which I hope it is the same.
I'm honestly slightly upset about it because the Xbox and PS2 Greatest Hits versions of Silent Hill 2 included this extra scenario with bonus story. Yeah. And I was kind of hoping it would get released as DLC for Silent Hill 2, and so far, no word at all. So I hope that still does get released as DLC, but so far they're just choosing to have no post-release monetization.
I'd rather take none than risk things like Persona 3 Remastered. Here's the season pass. Like, I don't...
Yeah.
No, stop. Please stop.
Well, I would take a season pass over, here's the same game released at full price again, and it's the only way you can get this bonus content, like Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah. Anyway,
really, post-release monetization just sucks in general, and let's not do it anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
That brings us to our topic at hand, which is Atari games. Is it Atari games? Is that the one?
Wait.
What?
No, it's Tengen.
Oh, no. We can't call it Atari games?
Well, we kind of can. We'll
but
get
it's
to
Atari
that.
games. Why don't they just call it Atari Games, Saturn?
We'll get there.
This is the company behind those weird black NES cartridges. The ones that didn't work as good, at least in my experience.
Sometimes they could.
Initial thoughts and encounters. The only Tengen cart I had growing up was Fantasy Zone. We talked about it recently. You might have noticed we did a little bit of content about Fantasy Zone. Just a few hours of me frantically screaming into a microphone about Opa and his eyebrows for 4.5 hours.
Look, it's important, Justin.
It felt important at the time.
It is important, damn it. It's important to me.
So that was the only one I had. And so we just thought it was weird. We were like, yeah, this one is weird. And then when I got older, I learned about unlicensed cartridges because I'd seen like one of those baby blue Bible game cartridges.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, I guess just that was a thing. I never knew Tengen was Atari until I was a full-grown adult.
Yeah.
And probably saw some YouTube video game history channel thing talking about it. And I was like,
And even then, it's not actually Atari, which is why they were Tengen.
Right. We only had the one growing up, and it wasn't something we sought out. And I don't remember ever seeing one. All of our games came secondhand from our local video store or pawn shop. And so that was the only one I ever saw.
Yeah.
But ours was Fantasy Zone.
Yeah. Our first one was Roadrunner. And then I didn't I also didn't hunt them down or seek them out. And we had rented a handful of unlicensed games. Like we rented Baby Boomer at one point. That was a mistake.
Yeah, it was.
That was a Color Dreams game. And I'm pretty sure we had rented Gauntlet a few times as a unlicensed. So, I had them. I didn't understand why they were weird and differently shaped at the time until the whole Tetris controversy happened. And then suddenly we all knew exactly why. I'd rented Tetris a couple times too, the Tengen Tetris. So, we learned it once that happened, and then the magazine started to cover it. But even then, it was only magazines like EGM and GamePro that were covering it. Nintendo Power, for some reason, never mentioned it. They just didn't mention those games at all. For some reason.
They must have not noticed them.
Yeah, they their head was turned the other way the whole time.
Why does Nintendo hate Rolling Thunder? Who knows?
Or what got me was, why did Nintendo Power never mention Pac-Man one time ever?
Yeah,
like that's a big game.
Yeah,
and then suddenly in '93 when Namco re-released it, Nintendo was like, finally on the NES.
Yeah, they'll do it.
Yeah.
Biographical info. Like with all things Atari, the name comes from Go. Tengen is the center point on a Go board.
Yes.
Tengen was founded January 11th, 1985 as Atari Games.
Yes.
Also founded December 21st, 1987 as Tengen.
Yes.
Dissolved June 28th, 1994. Rebranded at the time as Time Warner Interactive, which then also dissolved. February 7th, 2003, merged into Midway Games.
Yes.
And the founder was sort of Hideyuki Nakajima,
We'll get to that, yeah.
And it was also founded July 9th, 2024 as a new company making NES and Game Boy games.
Yes.
So prepare to be thoroughly confused for the remainder of the episode, because I don't know that it ever actually makes sense.
Nope.
It just kind of is. You know? So Saturn, take it away with the founding and standard confusing Atari nonsense that we've all come to know and love by the crypto coin, hotel, retro video game, FMV game, handheld with a keypad company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about right. So, just to get the basics out of the way, Atari was founded in 1972 and was bought by Warner Communications in 1976. And in 1983,
did not last long before Warner came in.
No, it did not last very long before Warner showed up. Nolan Bushnell had made some money, and he was like, "Oh, I can make all the money? Yeah, all right, I'm in."
Here I am.
Right? So in 1983, Warner announced that they had lost $500 million on Atari, which adjusted for inflation is $1.57 billion.
Oh, my God.
In just the first 3 fiscal quarters of the year.
And 83 was the crash for people that don't.
Yeah, that was the crash.
If you're outside of America,
right.
Probably 83 isn't known as a crash. But here, 83 was the video game market crash. This is what that was of.
And it was largely fueled by Atari. They were the ones who were losing all the money.
Yeah.
Which, granted, they were
those
a big
copies
chunk
of
of the
Chase the Chuck Wagon Saturn as hard as they tried.
Well, Atari didn't make that. Was Ralston Purina Foods made that.
Every fucking time it's funny. Every fucking time Ralston Purina Foods made a video game. Oh, God. Anyway.
Also, that company is now a division of Nestle. So Nestle owns the rights to Chase the Chuck Wagon.
Where's our HD remake, Nestle?
Yeah.
You bastards.
And of that adjusted $1.5 billion in losses from 3 quarters of a year, that almost exclusively came from their home video game division, and mostly because of the failure of the Atari 5200.
God, that's brutal. That's a lot of money out the door.
Oh yeah, and notably, Atari already had the 7800 in production and basically complete at this point.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where they already had several produced units boxed, ready to be shipped to retailers. And then they sold Atari to Commodore founder Jack Tramiel. Mm-hmm. And he decided, not going to release it, not worth it. That's just more
known
loss.
For making so many sound business decisions.
Yeah. And they ended up holding off on it for 5 years almost.
Yeah.
And then they sold it as if it was a brand new console. It was so dumb. Anyway.
Could you even imagine? Could you even imagine if they've had the PlayStation 8 this whole fucking time?
Right, just sitting on it in a warehouse.
Made in a warehouse. I mean, technology moves faster now. It kind of moved fast then. It
moved fast enough then, but by the time they released it, it was antiquated technology.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the arcade division of Atari was still quite profitable. Mm-hmm. So when they did sell Atari to Jack Tramiel, they decided they would hold on to the arcade division because that was making money. Warner wanted to keep that. So they sold Atari's home software business and their computer business and the Atari name to Jack Tramiel, which meant they didn't have a name for this arcade business that Warner now owned.
Yeah.
And the Atari name was still, worth something in the video game space at the time.
Sure. People knew it.
So they licensed the Atari name from Jack Tramiel that they had just sold to him so that they could use the name Atari Games for this arcade business.
All right.
They could not call themselves Atari.
Right. Because that was separate.
But they could call themselves Atari Games, and they could not sell anything directly to consumers.
Mm-hmm.
That was the rule. If they,
when you sell things and you,
they could sell things to businesses.
Sell it. Yeah, you could sell businesses the next console that'll play the future hit from Ralston Purina.
So they could sell things to businesses, so they could sell things to arcades.
Sure.
But if they wanted to sell things to consumers, they could not use the name Atari. So, Atari Games was immediately intended to be split off from Warner,
right?
Just because they, didn't want to be in the video game industry anymore. But they still held some ownership of it. So, to help fund this new company, Namco shows up. And they convinced Namco to purchase 60% of this new company, Atari Games, with Warner.
Which I believe we talked about recently in our
Namco episode.
Yeah, this is the other side of that coin.
Yeah. So the former president of Namco of America, Hideyuki Nakajima, was basically placed in the role as president of Atari Games. This was his division now. He was in charge of it. They immediately started, pretty strong. They started their operation in '85, and they had a bunch of successful arcade games. You had Marble Madness, Paperboy, Gauntlet, Super Sprint, 720 Degrees, APB. They also had licensed games like Empire Strikes Back, Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, and Roadrunner. All successful
well-known
arcade games.
Yeah.
But despite this, Namco's president, Masaya Nakamura, we talked about in the other episode, he was unhappy with the competition between Atari Games and Namco. So he sold most of his of Namco's stake in Atari Games to a group of employees, including Nakajima, in '87. So now suddenly Atari Games is partially owned by Nakajima, and the employees of Atari Games partially owned by Warner, partially owned by Namco. Surely that will never cause a problem.
How could this be confusing to anyone? No. I know I'm not confused. This is totally clear.
It's totally normal businessy things.
Right. So these sections of company held by different entities, some of which are individuals and some of which are companies that can sell products, but not to consumers, only to other businesses.
Right. Well, I mean, what they discovered is they could sell things to consumers, but not under that name.
Tell me more.
So, in '87, they decided they wanted to sell things to consumers, but again, they can't do it under the Atari name.
Sure.
And the home market was growing. It was growing fast, mostly because of Nintendo.
Yep.
Not because of Atari.
No, not because of Atari. Like Nintendo, I know it's interesting. This is total tangent, but the longer we do the show, when we started doing the show, I feel like a lot of things kind of didn't need saying.
Yeah.
But now that we're a decade in, we're 500 episodes in, and I'm seeing younger people engaging with this hobby, I'm realizing a lot of things do need saying. For example, in the mid and into the late 80s, there, at least in this market, in the North American market and some other markets, Nintendo was the only game in town.
True, yeah.
I mean, other companies existed, stuff happened, but nothing was Nintendo big.
Yeah, people will see that, like, the Sega Master System existed in the US.
It existed.
The Atari 7800 existed in the US. But as someone who was a kid in that time, when you would go to the toy store and you would go to the electronics store, you would go to Sears, and you would look at the shelves, it was Nintendo. You saw Nintendo. That other stuff might be in a bin somewhere.
Yeah.
But Nintendo was filling up the shelf space.
Yeah, Nintendo's all of it. Nintendo existed, like, a non-Nintendo game consoles in North America in the mid to late 80s existed the same way that, like, there are technically Linux-based phones on the market now. Why don't you name some of them, right? Like,
I would say that the shelf space that Atari and Sega were taking up by '87, give or take, would have been equivalent to the shelf space that plug-and-play consoles are taking up when you go to a store now.
Oh, I like that analogy. I could see that. Yeah.
It's like it's there. You can find it.
Some stores don't even have that sliver, but if you go to a big enough store, you might see a sliver of, like, oh, there's a miniature Bad Dudes arcade there next to the PS5 section. That's weird. And a Sonic plush below it. Yeah, exactly.
That's the kind of attention that Sega and Atari were getting at this point.
Yeah.
So
anyway, where were we?
Yeah, so Atari Games wants in on this. They are making these games in arcades. They want to sell them to people who have money. So they found the loophole was to use a different name. So they created Tengen, which, again, they just stole another term from Go because that's what Atari does.
Why not?
So initially, they had negotiated with the Nintendo to try to get a sweetheart licensing deal because that's what Namco had in Japan. And they still had, at this point, they were still mostly owned by Namco. This was just before Namco sold off their stake in the company. And when that failed, because Nintendo of America realized the money is in the licensing, they signed on to a deal to make Nintendo games while simultaneously immediately starting work on circumventing the NES lockout chip.
Yeah. And for people that don't know, Nintendo's licensing in the NES era was... Draconian. And I don't mean licensing like using our characters. I mean making a product on our system was notoriously stringent and archaic and restrictive.
Very strict.
Which is why you saw companies like Konami making the Ultra Games label to release more games than Nintendo would let them, which sounds bizarre today. You know, you go on the eShop now and it's all just like
slop.
Booby, fart, booby, the game.
I believe it was fart, booby, fart.
Fart,
sir.
fart, booby, booby. Fart, booby, fart, the game. That's what it was.
Your fart to booby ratio is off, sir.
As I'm thinking of the sequels.
All right, yeah.
And, you know,
The
it sounds
expanded
crazy,
universe.
but at the time, it was a problem because this industry is exploding.
Yes.
Companies
While
want
Nintendo is
in.
locking people into 5 or fewer games a year.
Yeah, and they are not letting people. And granted, there's an argument to be made that it made sense at the time. I mean, one of the arguments for why the video game market in North America crashed in '83 was because it was flooded by low quality titles.
Right.
I don't know how true that is or isn't, you know, on paper years and years later, really looking at the data, but that was how people felt at the time.
Yeah.
So this is a lot of companies are trying to get around these restrictions from Nintendo right now. Is what was my original point.
Yes, yeah, and Atari Games' approach was let's just break the hardware.
Right. We'll just
whereas
break
Konami
their
and
DRM.
Acclaim were just like, let's found separate companies to keep selling shit. Atari Games was just like, fuck this, we'll make our own damn games.
Could you? It's so crazy. Could you imagine if a company right now is like, we want to release PS5 games, so we're going to reverse engineer the PS5 DRM and just release unlicensed PS5 games? Like, they would get sued into the fucking ground so fast.
The thing is, it wasn't without precedent at the time because barely 5 years earlier, Activision had done the same shit to Atari.
Yeah. It was the Wild West, man. I mean, you could just take people's shit, reverse engineer it, and be like, we make it now. And you'd be like, well, you can't do that. And they'd be like, nothing says we can't. Nothing says a dog can't play basketball. Here we are.
Yeah. So
it's the Airbud clause.
Yeah, the Airbud clause in all legal contracts. Do you ever watch Clone High?
I've seen a couple episodes, but that was it.
There's an episode where they kind of parody that, where they've got a film festival and they're all making their artsy film house movies for it. And Abe Lincoln's film that he makes for it is about a giraffe playing football. And so it's just clear Airbud parody, but like they literally say the line, "There's nothing in the rules that says a giraffe can't play football." And that's always what I think. Anyway, so they do initially try to actually get a license with Nintendo, and they do. They got their license with Nintendo, and they made 3 NES games that were licensed. Mm-hmm. It was RBI Baseball, Pac-Man, and Gauntlet. And 2 of those are just localizations of games that Namco had already released in Japan on the Famicom.
Right.
And the other is Gauntlet, which is an Atari Games arcade game. So it makes sense. And when they were unable to fully circumvent the 10NES chip, they contacted the U.S. Copyright Office and stated that they needed the patent for the 10NES chip for information for litigation against Nintendo. They hadn't yet made this litigation. But
this is what is also known as fraud.
Yeah, this is really their downfall. But they claimed that's why they needed it. So they received it because the patent office is apparently staffed by idiots. And they give them... yeah. Probably still. Anyway, so they receive the patent information, and they use that information to create their circumvention chip, which they referred to as the Tengen Mimic chip.
Yeah.
Which could unlock the NES. And then immediately discontinued all work through Nintendo and began releasing their own custom carts, including unlicensed versions of those 3 games that they had already officially licensed.
Right.
And of course, Nintendo...
at least still cheaper to make them then.
Right, yeah, it was much cheaper to make them. And of course, Nintendo immediately filed suit against them.
Right. As well, honestly, in no other instance do I say this about Nintendo, but as well they should have.
Right, yeah, they were justified. So, of course, at the time, Nintendo did not realize that's how they circumvented the chip. They just knew that the chip was circumvented, and they wanted to file a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So Nintendo, their first lawsuit against Tengen, because they had several lawsuits back and forth. All their different cases lasted through 94. Ultimately, the U.S. Court of Appeals determined that reverse engineering the lockout chip was legal. Yeah. However, doing so via abusing the U.S. Copyright Office was not legal.
What?
I know. And while that case was going on, there was also the Tetris issue, where Atari Games realized that that they thought that they had the rights to publish Tetris because of the arcade game, and so they wanted to release a home game. So they released their version of Tetris on NES in May of '89, and they didn't have the rights to it, and there was a whole issue. What gets me, which I didn't realize until I was researching for this, is that Tengen had released a version of Tetris called Versus Tetris for Nintendo's Versus arcade system that Nintendo distributed.
I don't know that I realized that either.
And I can't find if Nintendo officially licensed it or anything, but Nintendo apparently allowed it to be put into their Versus arcade cabinets. So I don't know how this happened. Like, maybe Nintendo thought that since Atari Games held the arcade rights to the game, they were allowed to do this, but not release it on home. I don't know how this happened, but it's out there and you can find it.
By all of this shit is that none of them really knew how it worked. They were just kind of doing stuff.
Yeah, they were just
someone
doing
went,
shit.
You can't do that, and then sued them. That's just kind of how all business was done back then.
Yeah, it was certainly how all video game business was done back then.
Yeah, it was just do things, steal whatever until you're in court.
Right. So obviously Nintendo filed suit over their version of Tetris, and that also was rolled in Nintendo's favor. Tengen was ordered to recall any unsold copies and discontinue any future sales. And Tengen had a handful of successful unlicensed games during this time, but they also licensed a bunch of their games to other publishers to publish on the NES and Game Boy, mostly Mindscape and THQ. So even though Tengen was completely circumventing the NES and releasing their own unlicensed cartridge, they were also doing it the legal way and just licensing their games to other companies to publish. So I have no idea what the fuck was going on at Atari Games at this point.
Like, I'm sure this wasn't it, but at some point, I mean, it might have been. At some point, it almost feels like they were doing it because they were pissed off.
Yeah.
It
does feel like spite to a degree.
Yeah. It's you reach a point where you're like, Masaya Nakamura from Namco was probably understandably pissed off because they're like, look, we have these deals already with Nintendo. Like, we've been releasing these games. What is the fucking problem?
Right.
Should we not get preferential treatment?
Yeah.
And again, this is full conjecture, literally just making shit up.
Right.
But I could see him being pissed off and be like, nah, fuck them. We're going to make our own cartridges and then still license the shit out, still do it the legal way, but also keep making the Tengen cartridges because fuck them for not treating us right. Like, I could see it.
Yeah, it feels like it's a combination of spite from Namco and spite from Atari culminating into this one company.
Right, into a big spite golem.
Yeah, spite golem.
That's what happens when there's too much spite. It turns into a spite golem.
That was their original name before they went with Tengen.
Right. So they went for, spite golem was too long.
Yeah, it was taken, actually.
They shortened it. By spite golem carpet cleaners.
Who also made unlicensed NES cartridges for some reason.
Right, because who didn't? Who didn't back then? Those were for the Aladdin game deck.
Yeah. All those were licensed through Comerica. Anyway, so we've got a bunch of court cases, and we've got a bunch of back and forth dick waving between Atari Games rather and Nintendo.
Sure.
And then, also while they're doing all this, unrelated, they're also selling games the right way through other consoles.
Yeah,
like they got a license for with Sega and with NEC, and they're publishing games on Genesis, Master System, Game Gear, Sega CD, 32X, and TurboGrafx 16. So they're doing all that the right way. And I've heard, I couldn't find it, couldn't confirm it for this episode, but I'd heard that Sega apparently did give Tengen a sweetheart deal just because they also wanted to piss off Nintendo.
Right.
And that might be the case. I don't know.
I can see it.
Tengen was releasing games the right way, and they also they never published games on Atari's consoles. They just licensed them to Atari for that. So I don't know if that was part of their arrangement with Atari for using the name, or if they just were on better terms with Atari or what. I don't know. Anyway, So they were still doing some stuff outside of their fighting with Nintendo. And then in mid '94, Tengen's founder Nakajima passed away at the age of 64, which is tragic. And then we start to see a shift because Warner randomly decided that they wanted it back. And once all of the
it's not unheard of that they make arbitrary decisions about what they want to own. It's it's Warner.
So in '94, once all the lawsuits got resolved and all that was taken care of, what was Warner, what is now Time Warner, decides they'll take it back. So they buy back all of the remaining stake of Atari games from Namco and from the employees, and then they bring it back under the Time Warner brand. So Atari Games, the arcade division, gets to keep its name, but Tengen was rebranded to Time Warner Interactive, which is effectively the end of Tengen as a name.
Right.
But the company itself consisted, and all the employees stuck around.
Yeah.
And then Time Warner Interactive immediately signed on as an official licensee of the Super NES and the Game Boy. So clearly, Nintendo had no bad blood here. They were like, whatever, we'll take your money.
It really drives home the idea that it was some hurt egos from the past, and now that it's just Warner being like, hey, we're just Warner, we just want to fucking make things.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't care. We have no vendetta with you.
Not only did Time Warner Interactive immediately start making games, because they published Primal Rage on all the different consoles, which was developed by Atari Games, so it's the same company. But also Nintendo and Time Warner Interactive teamed up for what they called the Ultra 64 Dream Team.
Oh, God.
Which was a team of developers who were committed to using Ultra 64 hardware in arcades and producing high-quality Ultra 64 titles for the upcoming console.
Unlike all those companies that were making the shitty Ultra 64 titles.
Right.
Right.
So far as I can tell, the only people who were part of this dream team were Atari Games, Time Warner Interactive, Midway, and Rare, who was still owned by Nintendo at the time.
Right. So Atari, Midway, and Nintendo teamed up with Nintendo.
Yeah. They're the dream team, Justin.
Real fucking dream team, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to just make a dream team of your own home team players. You don't get to. It's just...
That's it. That's the dream team.
I don't know a lot about sports, but I don't think that's how that works. All right, so they make their dream team.
Yeah, and then this is basically the end of the story because
Tengen's gone.
Yeah, and so Time Warner again decides they want out of the video game industry because
they can't make up their fucking mind.
They're a revolving door. So they're looking for a buyer. One of the bidders was Atari founder Nolan Bushnell, because he also wants back in the video game industry at this point.
Right.
Because
he's not going to get there by making new interesting things.
This is the mid '90s. He can't afford that.
Yeah.
Really, he never made anything interesting in the first place. He just hired people who did.
He's good at owning stuff. So
he is. Well, he's only kind of good at it.
Yeah. He's known for owning stuff.
Yeah, there you go. The winning bid actually came from WMS Industries, a casino magnate who at the time also owned Bally Williams Midway. And so WMS merged Atari Games into Midway, though they did continue to use the Atari Games brand for some arcade machines for a while. In November of '99, unrelated, Hasbro had acquired the Atari name and brand and immediately canceled the licensing deal with Atari Games, so Atari Games could no longer use the Atari name. So Atari Games themselves would officially be rebranded as Midway Games West in '99 and would close down alongside the rest of Midway's arcade business in '03.
After surviving for 4 long years as Midway Games West.
Right. And then Midway itself would go on to be spun off from WMS and then go bankrupt in 2009. And the rights to Atari Games Library, along with the rest of Midway and Williams, would be acquired by Time Warner, who
has decided they want to get back in the video game industry.
Yeah, who then folded all of Midway and Atari Games into the Warner Brothers Games division.
All of these these specific companies. It's like this big fucking katamari of just like brand names all rolling around with each other, and every now and then one of them.
It feels more like a human centipede than it does katamari to me. The Warner to Atari to Warner to Atari,
like a 15-person long human centipede.
Yeah, it's just like they keep eating the name and then shitting it back into each other's mouth.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a mess. And now, of course, Warner is once again considering getting out of the game industry. So who the fuck knows who is going to own Midway Atari Williams next?
Yeah.
But unrelated to all of this, in mid-2024, indie developer Jeff Silvers discovered that the Tengen trademark for the Tengen name and wordmark had expired. And so following a series of registrations with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, he gained the legal rights to the name and has begun publishing games under the label Tengen Games.
Oh, Tengen is back!
And their first game, ZNZ, has since been released for the NES and Famicom, and also as a ROM that you can play in emulators.
And looks pretty cute.
It does.
It's on itch.io, and I mean, it looks legit. I've not played it. Yeah. It's only $5, and it looks pretty
it's
$5
fun. For the ROM. If you want the physical cartridge, it is more than that.
And it worth checking out. Just judging by the way it looks, just looks like a fun little action.
It's an indie game, and we support indie developers, so you know
we do. Yeah. So you know what? This is one of the rare instances where there is a happy ending.
Well, there's a happy ending for the name. The company itself.
Fuck the company, but for Tengen, you know,
for the name, for the developers. Sorry you went through all that.
So many of these stories were just like, it was this great company, and then they slowly just like turned into a pile of shit that dissolved and shriveled up in the noonday sun, and then Warner owns them now and they don't want them. Like that just feels like
that's
the
actual story
of so many companies, and this one at least has a little at the very end. It's like,
hey, Tengen name,
Tengen's also back.
Yeah.
So that's that's exciting. And it's right there. Copyright Tengen Games 2024. Yeah. I wonder how much they paid for it.
I assume at least $4.
I'd be curious to see exactly how much money that.
I don't know how much it costs to file a patent or trademark or whatever, but I mean, you didn't have to buy it from anybody because nobody owned it anymore.
That's true. Yeah. In my head, I'm like they purchased it, but yeah, you're right. They didn't buy it. They just refiled the patent.
Yeah.
So there you go. And they have a tagline called "Gaming has no gatekeeper." Is their tagline? In case you didn't know that.
Which is, pretty on brand for Tengen.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's fire through some games. We talked about a lot of them. As Atari games, they made Marble Madness Paperboy, Gauntlet 720, Road Blasters. They released Tetris, Blasteroids.
Tubin, Justin. You missed Tubin.
I missed Tubin! As Tengen, they did other stuff. They, like you said, they had licensed RBI Baseball, Gauntlet, Pac-Man, which also got unlicensed versions. Yeah. Tetris, Rolling Thunder, Vindicators, Afterburner.
Awesome Possum kicks Dr. Machino's butt.
That classic fun. They did, of course, release Fantasy Zone, which is unrelated to the Sunsoft port of Fantasy Zone that released in Japan, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
That they would have two different ports on effectively the same platform, just in different regions.
A rare situation where that happens. It's not completely unheard of, but very uncommon.
They did Miss Pac-Man,
Yeah. Well, yeah, they did a lot of the Namco stuff.
Yeah. So it's just, as far as final thoughts, I think we kind of already touched on it, but it's nice that the name gets to live on a little bit.
Yeah.
And they kept the logo and everything, so it's like a slightly newer looking version of the logo.
Slightly cleaned up version of it.
But that's cool. Tengen was just one of those weird byproducts of how draconian Nintendo was, and kind of serves as a stark reminder of like, they were pretty fucking hateful right there at the beginning. They're like, no. Not everybody gets to make games. This is an exclusive club. And companies are like begging, like, please, can we release software for your system? And they're like, no. You can do 3 games.
Can you believe that Nintendo was so strict that they refused a license to Color Dreams?
I know. Strict and litigious. What gets me is they were all fucking strict about it. How come we still got so much shit on the NES?
I mean, they did try their best to keep Color Dreams out.
That's true. But I mean, look at every LJN game.
Yeah, they did.
Every LJN game was licensed. What the fuck was that about?
Yeah. Yeah, the seal of quality had a big old asterisk afterwards.
It was like like we talked about earlier. Like I get the idea of like we don't want to flood the system with software.
Right.
And Nintendo over the years always insisted that they like checked everything for quality and content and whatever, but we know that they didn't. Like there are so many demonstrable moments.
The thing is that the seal of quality just meant that the game functioned.
Right.
It meant that it would turn on and play.
You know, Nintendo had these lists of things you couldn't have in their games, and it was heavily implied, if not outright stated. They're like, no, we do go through these to make sure that they meet our standards. They didn't. No fucking way. You're telling me they fucking played through Widget the World Watcher? No, you didn't.
Certainly
you
not.
Liars.
Well, we've since learned how they did it. As they just asked the publisher to send them a VHS tape of the game.
Yeah,
that was their review process, and then they would watch the VHS tape, see whatever material they actually recorded, and prove it based on that. So if they skipped half the game in the VHS tape, then that half of the game didn't get reviewed.
Or they skip the end of Blaster Master, or they skip the boobies in Golgo 13, or whatever gets skipped. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was Tengen was kind of indicative of what the market was like at the time, and what you had to do to get your NES cartridges out there. So that's my final thought.
Really, I feel like their quality was in arcades.
Sure.
And their home output was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Just weird.
Absolutely. And also, you literally just stole patents for hardware and reverse engineered it. That is like...
Look, how else are you going to do it, Justin?
Some brazen crime right there.
Reverse engineering is when you don't engineer things, Justin. That's
right.
It's right there in the name.
Steal the plans.
Yeah.
I still, it still blows my mind that they did that. It's like that's some crazy shit. To just be, I'll just fucking call them and lie to them.
It feels like the solution that they would find in a movie starring a bunch of high school kids.
Yes. It sounds like a plot from like a late Revenge of the Nerds sequel.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, you know what else sounds like a plot from a late Revenge of the Nerds sequel? Most of the shit on our Patreon. At patreon.com.
Wait. Remember that Guy is here.
Oh, yeah, Guy is here. Please don't forget the Guy is here.
Yeah.
He's going to be here after the ending theme, so stay tuned for that.
Yes.
But also stay tuned for our Patreon.
Yes.
Patreon.com/RetroWarriors. Where if everyone that listened to the show gave us $1, we could all live on it. It's how much money we would make per... I don't know. I think we'd be pretty good. At least a couple of us would be like, yeah, we can live on this. It's you know, we get some decent downloads.
I just learned that Justin can live on $8 a month.
All 8 of us that download it. I'm one of them. I give myself $1. For as little as any amount of money, we'll give you Talking Wizards. And for $1 an episode, you get the shows early. You get an uncut version of the episode that includes 20 minutes of us talking about other random shit. So please consider supporting the show. I recently ventured into the internet land to ask for recommendations for other shows that don't have ads or sponsorships, because you might notice we don't have ads or sponsorships.
Correct, yeah.
And I asked this question on Lemmy, and people showed up like I was a fucking idiot. And we're like, what do you mean a show with no ads? And I'm like, a show that is not paid for by advertisers and sponsors. And they're like, that's not a thing. And I got to be as smug as possible and go, actually, I've done 500 episodes of a show with not one ad or sponsorship, so I know it exists. There has to be at least one other show like mine. And come to find out that a lot of people are like, yeah, no, y'all are the only show I've ever heard that doesn't have ads. Which, first of all, is very sad to me.
And second of all, let me tell you about Athletic Greens.
So we don't run sponsors. If you want to kick us some money, that would be wonderful. If you go to our link tree, if you don't want to subscribe on Patreon, that's fine. If you go to our link tree, which is in the show description, there's a link to it. You just click it. Then we have a Ko-Fi page, and you can just give us a couple bucks for making a show that you enjoy. Yeah. If you don't want to do the whole monthly subscription whatever thing, which I don't blame you. I'm trying to pare down my subscriptions right now.
We appreciate the kindness either way.
Yes, we do. And we also appreciate the following patrons who do give us money of an undisclosed amount. I refuse to disclose it, no matter how much you torture me. I will never disclose the information. Starting
Will
with
you tell
Krista... me? No, I won't tell you either. Fuck you, Saturn. I won't disclose it.
No!
Starting with Krista Lair.
And Nick Brown.
Free Code Camp Quincy Larson.
Stranger Alps.
Mark Meredith.
Idiot Man.
Which is also their name in our Discord, and I love it. Marcus.
Retro Video Game Zone Jason.
Will and Angie.
And Chris Webb.
I feel like Will and Angie got a twofer there. They put both their names in. Just cramming.
Just sneaking it in there. Next month, we're going to get somebody who puts like 12 names in there.
Right. Them and then all of their pets. Are all patrons that give us money, please consider supporting the show. It means a lot to us.
Indeed.
And we won't run ads. We promise we won't run ads. We're not going to do it. Not at all. Never.
Just like our
Never.
sponsor, Athletic Greens.
God, stop saying it. Anyway, please stay tuned after the ending theme. Our producer guy is going to be on for the after party, and you get to hear him talk about what topic do I want to put him on the hook for. You get to hear him talk about deforestation. So
that's not a funny topic. I shouldn't have laughed at that.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week, and as always, let us cling together. Hi, welcome to the after party with our producer Guy. Hi, Guy. You're here to tell us about the horrors of deforestation.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you know, our national parks are currently understaffed and are being opened up for mining leases. So,
right, that's great. How much of it is like Fern Gully?
A lot of it, surprisingly.
Really interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So
you hear all the singing from the smog monster. It's great.
Yeah.
Right.
Wherever you go,
wasn't that James Woods?
If you're up high enough, like, you know, International Space Station, like slightly low Earth orbit, we'll say, you can hear it in stereo from Earth.
Oh, nice.
All the smog monsters singing.
Right.
Nice.
Oh, there's more. I guess there'd be more than one.
Yeah.
They had to
There's a
pare
lot,
it down.
Yeah, it's a
the
whole
movie.
chorus in the Amazon, really.
Well, Fern Gully is just about that one place, whereas this is the entire Earth.
It was not James Woods. Also, Tommy Chong is in Fern Gully.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
And Cheech Marin is there. Tim Curry's in there, man. Christian Slater. I forgot the lineup for Fern Gully.
They're a hell of a cast.
It did, man. It really did. Obviously, Robin Williams is in it too. He was the
It's
bat.
a shame it's not a good movie, but you know.
It's
I
an
don't
alright
know
movie.
why you have to hurt me.
Hmm.
It's a great movie.
It's a good enough movie that they made it like 5 or 6 times now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime a movie comes out with an environmental message, I'm like, it's Fern Gully.
Yeah. What was it like? Fern Gully was Dances with Wolves, and then Avatar was Fern Gully but blue people.
Yeah.
Right. It was Blue Fern Gully.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. You thought you'd
Well,
get
we
me
can at
with
least-
deforestation. I got you, fucker.
We can at least agree that Fern Gully 2 is bad, right?
It was direct-to-video sequel, yeah. So that was pretty
Yeah,
bad.
those are all pretty bad.
For the young people out there, that was when movies went straight to home video
Right.
instead of going to theaters first.
For the young people out there, home video is when you would watch a movie in your home.
We
instead
still
of in a
have
theater.
home video. It's called Netflix.
No,
It's
we just
video
have
in my
streaming now.
home.
Yeah, but
It's
you'd have
home
a
video!
physical object. My son, like, we started watching X-Files, and I've got the X-Files like collection, and we're watching it on Hulu or whatever. He's like, Dad, why don't we watch it on your CDs though? Like, God damn it, dude. God damn it.
CDs.
And in his
that's
defense,
funny.
they are discs and they are compact.
It is
Yep.
true. It is
There
true.
you go.
Yeah.
I'm just on the movies of 1992 list now on IMDb. Wayne's World, Aladdin, Tetsuo the Iron Man, Batman Returns, Candyman. There's some fucking bangers in 1992.
Oh man, I was trying to discern my notes, and like I wrote on my work notes, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And for one of our clients, like we had one of our my coworkers is leaving, and so I had a meeting with him about like, hey, what can I take over for you?
Mhm.
And one of the things that I'm looking at is when our clients have like issues with their like network that we have set up for them or whatever.
Yeah.
So I have written down here environmental issues. I was like, did I want to talk about environmental issues on the show? What the fuck?
Yeah, like
Little out of scope.
deforestation.
A little out of scope.
Yeah, like deforestation. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, did I predict this? Did I manifest this conversation?
Yeah,
I knew. I felt the vibe. I could feel it.
Sorry, I just reminded myself because I kind of faded out. Like at one point in this episode, towards the end, like Saturn said something and wrapped up what he was saying, and it sounded like he just walked away because the next thing he said sounded like this. like he turned around and
forgot he was on a show.
No, like he had dropped the mic and like walked away and then came back because you said something else.
Right. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna keep talking. Okay, I guess we'll."
And another thing.
Yeah, guy, what do you actually have?
Let's see, playing Tunic.
Oh
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Good game.
A
Since
couple
you talked
people in the Discord also started playing Tunic after we talked about it on the show. Yeah,
Such a good game.
Yeah, well, and like I didn't realize the first time I played it, I thought it was like Legend of Zelda or whatever, right?
It was vaguely like
That was kind of the aesthetic that
it's
it
like
gave me.
by way of Dark Souls-esque kind of.
Yeah, I guess I missed the whole Souls thing because, which is like in the very beginning, right?
Right.
Because like when I was playing it like a couple hours ago, I collected all my like lost gems or whatnot, and I was like, oh, it's a Souls game.
Yeah, kind of.
It very much is. It's like a Zelda-themed Souls-like,
Yeah.
but with difficulty options.
And then I started like
nice.
slowing down and approaching the combat like a Souls game, and it was like it got way easier.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh,
it does.
you have to actually like
Until you get the
strategize
quarry,
shit.
and then it stops being easy again.
Oh
no.
yeah, and then it's insane. And then after the quarry, there's no hard combat in the game that isn't a boss fight. So
Right, yeah, that's a little more reasonable.
definitely a different vibe. But yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Are you? Do you have a copy that? Because I have the physical on Switch, and it comes with the actual manual in it.
No, I'm playing.
yours-
I'm playing it on cloud streaming on Xbox.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, I played it on Xbox when it first came out on Game Pass, and it's really good. Just such a good game.
Which is another topic I have written down. Cloud gaming has changed my life today.
It's
Oh,
so
changed your life
Today
Wow.
specifically, because like I don't know, I was looking at buying like the 2 terabyte expansion for the Xbox, right?
Yeah.
And then I realized like
$200 fucking dollars.
all the games that I have that I play on Xbox for more or less are Game Pass games with cloud streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
And like the last time I tried cloud streaming, I was on internet at my house in Fort Worth or whatever. Like it wasn't great. Oh no! Last time I tried it, I was doing the T-Mobile internet.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, no, that ain't gonna
Yeah,
work.
no, it was awful, and I haven't tried it since. And I was just like gave up on the idea of cloud gaming. I was like, I guess it just sucks. So now, like, I'm like, oh, I put all these games on my play later list, and I'm just hopping between them. I played like 5 different games today. I was like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man.
I will regularly cloud stream from my office if I'm if I'm working a long shift and there's literally nothing going on. I'll pull out my phone and plug in my Backbone and just immediately connect to Xbox Live and play things that way, and it works great. Been very happy with it.
I wish my internet supported it.
I
mean, it does. It supports the technology. It tries. It tries to support it.
Yeah, I'm just excited that I don't have to download 40 gigs and 100 gigs of game anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid.
That's good.
The
you.
only other note I have is at least Tool and Rush are sort of in the same ballpark.
I could see it. Yeah.
They're both sort of
doing kind
proggy
of
metal, weird time
experimental
signature.
prog rock kind of. Yeah, totally.
They just
I did think of you when I referenced Tool in that episode.
I
so I'm
appreciate
glad
that. Thank you.
Noticed it. Yeah.
that was this
for
episode,
you.
but you know,
Yeah, you're
that's what I
still
said.
in the episode, Saturn.
Yeah.
We're still within
Oh,
it.
that's true.
you said that
You've
episode.
Never, it's
like
a
it's
Twilight
different.
Zone. You've never left
Well,
the
we-
episode.
We have technically finished the episode part and have moved on to the fun part.
That's true.
Oh, okay. Oh, you said the fun part. I was gonna be all like,
We did the
huffy
work,
about
and
it.
now we get to talk to Guy about random
Yeah.
shit.
it's
Right.
good. It's good.
Yeah.
My wife has only seen one episode of the Twilight Zone ever.
What?
And it was the episode where the parents. I'm going to spoil it. So spoilers for a 60s sci-fi television show.
Yeah.
It was the episode where you find out at the end that the parents have built this daughter who's like a robot.
Yeah.
And they're living this like future life of luxury where nobody has to work or do anything. You just sit around all day and smoke pipes and talk about stocks. I don't know what they talked about. But the mom was like useless, and she had a series of attendants that gave her shoulder massages all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
very Jetsons lifestyle.
Yeah, very Jetsons-y. Anytime my wife's had like a bad day at work, she's like, "Oh man, I need what that lady in that one episode of that show had." Just perpetually. And every time we're gonna be like, "It's called The Twilight Zone." It was it was a relatively famous show. It's like, yeah, whatever that was. I need fucking one of those. And I have to keep being like, that wasn't an ongoing theme in the show. Nobody else will understand that you need a Twilight Zone massage. They won't know what that is.
When you were saying that they sit around and talk about stocks or whatever, it sounded for a split second like you were about to say, I don't know, whatever it is that adults talk about, as if you didn't realize that we were adults now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, Justin sits around and plays video games all day. I mean, he does some adult stuff, right? Like,
I did so much laundry today. I mean, I think I did 5 loads worth of laundry.
I got to do laundry after we finish recording today.
Gross. I hate laundry. This is me. Courtney and I have been having like we're old people now moments. And one of them was my mom gave me her old washer and dryer. And so I gave my current washer and dryer to Andrew. So I help Andrew load those up, take them to his apartment, and install them. And in return, he helped me install the ones that I got in my house.
Yeah.
And after we got it, we were so excited because it fits so much more laundry. And there's 3 of us in our house. We have a lot of laundry. Also, I'm very lazy, so it piles up. And so we like went in there and put the first load in, and my wife and I are just standing over it, looking through the little window, watching it wash the laundry. And it's not even that we're doing it; it's that we're both like, "Yeah, wash that fucking laundry." And I had to be like, "This is what we're old people now. This is what old people do. They get a new washer and they stand there and fucking watch it wash their clothes."
Let me tell you something. I'm older than you, and I've never watched my washer wash my clothes.
Oh, I have. When I first got a front-loading washer, it was fascinating shit.
Oh man, we were like, we're old now. I think we're officially old, standing here watching, just being like, yeah.
Oh wait,
I do laundry twice a week.
Speaking of Andrew. And having moved and needing
who's not here to
new
defend
stuff.
himself.
No, I'm not going to accuse him of anything. Not like usual, you know. I want to talk about. Okay, so for everybody listening, he reached out because he's moving, and he's like, "Hey, does anybody want to come help me move? For I can buy you pizza or whatever it is Justin eats these days." I think were his exact words.
Not pizza, but yeah.
But I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
100,000% no. And I felt like a dick, right? But like, I'm at a time in my life where I will never ever move my shit again. And I offered Andrew, I was like, look, man, I will chip in to have people move you. And he's like, well, I mean, it's still like, it's a lot of money. I was like, no, okay, you know what? Fuck it. Whatever you can't pay, I will pay. He's like, it's still a lot of money. I'm like, dude, I will pay for your entire move if it means I don't have to help you move.
That's many hundreds of dollars. That's hard to take from a friend on a whim, you know. That's
No, I understand. But I will
tell you this. We moved, I helped him move on Saturday, and it was we moved for 14 hours.
Nope.
We had a 16-foot truck, and in the middle of that, we had to disassemble his washer and dryer, go to Lowe's, get parts, come back, and I had to fix those up so they would fit in the new hookups. And I didn't. Worse. I took my tool bag. I have a tool belt, and I took my belt, and I was like, should I take my sockets too? And I remember being like, what the fuck you're not going to fix anything. You're just helping to move. You're just bringing tools in, because sometimes when you're moving, you need to take shit apart. And we had to disassemble that washer and dryer to get them to fit, and I did not have the tools I needed, and I was kicking myself for not bringing an absurd amount of tools. But after those 14 hours of moving, we're sitting there, and it's like 10:30 at night, and I'm sitting there, and we had just eaten, we like got DoorDash food, and I'm sitting there, and he goes, yeah, I'm never doing this again. I'm hiring Ubers. I was like, yeah, all right, man.
It's the last time I hired movers, and like before they showed up, I was like, God, that was so expensive. What am I doing? This is a giant waste of money. And then like the hour and a half later, after all of my shit was moved across town, I just stopped and was like, that was worth it. It was worth every penny. Yeah. Even if I have to go, put some shit on a credit card next time, this is absolutely what I'm doing. This is the route.
this is going to sound insane. I like helping people move.
Yeah, it does sound insane, yeah.
I've helped all of my friends except for Guy move. Guy's the only person I've not helped. Saturday I helped you move. I helped you pack.
Yeah, I hate that part.
I have
That's the
moved
worst.
twice since you've known me, and you know why you haven't helped me move?
Movers, yeah, but I don't. It's not like I like doing it. It sucks. I don't know what it is.
You like being helpful.
But I guess I don't know. Anytime someone's like, they're like, I'm moving. I'm like, I'll come help. And then you get there and you realize that most people don't volunteer to help people move, so you end up being the only person there. I helped Andrew move to his house in Austin. Then I moved him out of his house in Austin, and then I moved him out of this house, and then I moved him out of this house he just moved out of.
Yeah. Well, moving sucks, and I hate it. And
yeah, it does suck.
I will put up with pretty egregious rent increases apparently, so long as I don't have to move. Because God, moving sucks so much.
Yeah. So if you're on the fence about getting movers out there, just do it.
Do it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Assuming you can afford it anyway.
And you know what? If you're thinking about asking your friends to help you move, think about asking your friends to give you money to help you move.
Right.
I'll come help you move. Whoever it is, you let me know. I'll be there. I'll help you move.
Because
you're gonna buy me a burrito.
Right. So you got DoorDash, it's probably like $20 of food for 14 hours of labor. Like, Jesus Christ, no.
Yeah. I don't know. I like it's again. It doesn't make sense. You know what it is? I like that, when you're like in the truck driving back and forth and you're just like bored and tired. I like that kind of it's a good conversation,
It was so nice when I moved because I just got to drive my car with myself in it.
And
I
just
didn't
show
even
up and your
have
shit was there, yeah.
Well, no, I followed them there. Like I led them there. So I was in front of them. So I got there just before them, opened the door. It took them maybe 15 minutes to get my entire life out of their truck and into my apartment.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
It's so amazing.
I just got to spend the next day unpacking, and then I was done.
Like moving into this giant ass house, I just stood in the foyer and was like, no, that goes in this room, that goes in this room. It was
I think
direct traffic.
The advantage of having a tiny apartment is they just put it all in one place, and they're like, I guess we'll put the bed in the bedroom and the couch in the living room. You need us to do anything else? Like, no, I'm good now. Bye.
Yeah. I think I just like hanging out with people.
Yeah, I'm down for the hanging out.
It's hard to hang out with people. Or when you do, it's for like an hour and a half, and then they're like, I'm going to go now. But when they're moving, they have to hang out with me all day long.
I'll tell you what.
See, the advantage of Andrew moving close by is now I can just be like, hey, I'm going to hang out with you for an hour this night. And then we can see each other again next week. And we're close enough that that's not an inconvenience in any way.
Yeah.
Okay, next time one of us in our group has to move, we'll get a pool together and hire movers, and then
while the movers are working,
we'll hang out.
We'll all hang out with Justin.
Yeah,
but they're gonna do it so fast. Professional movers are so fast.
Yeah, but we can still hang out and shoot the shit.
It'll be like
we'll
2
spend the day
hours.
together while the movers are doing their thing.
Courtney complains about this. Like I'm the same way with like tabletop games. She'll be like, like we'll do something, we'll play D&D or whatever, or have a board game or something. I'll be like, that was fun, but I want to do like 9 more consecutive hours of that. She'll be like, no, that's not gonna happen. I find that I have a voracious appetite for hanging out with people that other people don't share. They're like, no, I'm gonna go fucking home and be a normal human being, and you can just go be a freak somewhere else with other people.
Oh man, my kid wants to be a professional Magic player. I'm like, yes, okay, I can be your coach. This is great. I've got a training plan for you and everything. And yet the other day, I taught him how to play sealed. Right, taught him how to build a deck. And the little shithead beat me. We ended up playing a best of one, and his deck like just kicked my ass. I helped him, right? Like he made some like decisions or whatever, and I was like, here. I stopped and I was like, here, why are you thinking that decision? And like we went through it or whatever, and so like he made optimal stuff and just forced me to lose. But he built the deck and followed the general deck building rules and stuff. But getting around to the point of, I was like, all right, so let's play a second game. He's like, why? It's like, no, let's play more. Let's like a
because
best
we've
of 3.
not played a full match. It is a best of 3 game.
Let's go. And then when we're done, he's like, no, I'm just kind of done right now. I'm like, God, okay, we'll do it again next week.
Yeah. No, I have much more appetite for that kind of stuff than I've learned over the years than other people do. I think that's why I like conventions so much. It's like I can show up and just do like 12 hours of gaming in a day. and no one's like, Justin, we have to go home. You're a weirdo. Why do you want more of this? That's the upside, I guess.
That's good.
Yeah, I prefer the shorter burst approach.
The couple hours of hangout, and you could
like
go
the
be yourself.
consistency. You get to go hang out, and I prefer it when it's like regular, like every week or every other week or some routine kind of thing. But I just really like routine. Is what I've learned.
I wonder how much of it was growing up. I didn't have many friends. I had one and then eventually two friends, but we were always hanging out. It was like, okay, they came over Friday night and they're going to go home Sunday in the evening before they have to go back to school the next day. Because there was only like the two of us, so we were always hanging out, and maybe I'm just mentally trying to get back to those days.
I also really, really cherish alone time, so I don't know that I could have done that. That sounds horrifying.
The weird part is I do too. I'll have moments where I'm like, I really just need some time that's just me. So I don't know.
I need time every day for several hours. If I don't have that,
I need if I'm doing shit, like if I do one of these hangouts, then at the end of the day, like after we finish the show tonight, I'm gonna stay up for like an hour and a half because I just need to have an hour and a half of time that's just me doing me stuff.
Fair.
And I don't know what it is. I have no idea. But we should end this show.
All
All right.
We're still recording.
Guy, thanks for doing the show.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks
for being on. I'm glad you are not sick from the super COVID or whatever it is you had. I don't remember.
Yeah, it ended up being like a 2-week stuffy nose. It was dumb.
Ugh.
Yeah, like I didn't have a fever.
COVID,
I didn't have a cough or sneeze or anything. It was just like a stuffy nose that dripped a lot for 2 weeks.
Like the Monday after we recorded last, I was diagnosed with shingles, which I have learned can also produce fever and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I felt mostly fine the entire time, just a little bit of pain. But every time I told somebody about it, they're like, "Oh, that's the worst." And I feel like I must have gotten just the most mild case ever.
My wife's had shingles 3 times, and it was fucking brutal every time. Oof. So yeah, I don't know what version you got. The good
the light.
version.
I got shingles light.
Diet shingles.
Yeah, diet shingles. Shingles 0.
Yeah, shingles light. It's half the price and
right.
Doesn't
wasn't half the price.
Doesn't hook up to your monitor or whatever.
All right. Okay, the show is over. Thank you for listening to the show. Thanks for everyone. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.